Friends, welcome back to this epic block of the month. We are on month number 5 and we're going to work on the awesome 4 corners that go around the center star. Are you ready? Let's get started. Welcome back, folks. My name is Rob Appell from Stitch in Heaven out in Quitman, Texas. And yes, you are working on this incredible, or I should say epic block of the month by my dear friend Charisma Horton from the Little Pink Barn. And we are using my new fabric line, New and Newer Worlds by Benartex. And this is an awesome project. It's going to finish 96 by 96. And we have 12 months of sewing. We are on month number 5 and we have a video for each and every month. So make sure you're letting us know in the comments below how you are doing in all of this as we start. You will need the pattern to work from because I will be leaving out some of the sizes just to protect our designers out there. And I think we pretty much have got all the housekeeping out of, get the iron hot. And then we have all of our housekeeping out of the way. And like I was starting to say, this is going to be a super fun sewing month. Last month we had a kind of a work month, and we're going to need some of those parts and pieces from month 4 now to this month in month 5. And so we've got these center blocks put aside, really. I told you not to put them together because we want to build everything in columns. But now we're going to be working on these kind of cool outer corners here that you also see on the wall. There are 4 of them to make, and they start on our instructions on page number 10. Here, and these are very color coded and fabric specific and oriented. So we're going to be working through our diagrams completely today to make sure that we have all 4 of those. And you can even see I was making some notes. The 2 that you see here are the ones that are up on the wall, and the 2 that you see are the ones we're constructing and building out, like I said. So anyways, starting in step 1, and we've done these before, we're going to make this unit here the square in a square, and you're going to need 4 of them, 1 for each of the units this month. And I've got one to sew with you, so let's get started. Got the 1/4 inch seam allowance already set with my edge guide. Fingers crossed, everything goes swell today. And with these pieces, I'm just going to stitch one on one side, one on the other before I go over to the wool mat to press this out. And I have so many parts and pieces, I kind of already feel like I've got stuff in the way, but we do need to get to all of this. So I feel a little more organized already. Now I'm going to press the white fabric over into the black fabric now, just for management, color-wise, that kind of thing. But pretty soon we're going to lose this battle. So folks, just do your best. And don't worry too much about any of the times where the lighter fabric is maybe seen under, or excuse me, the darker fabric is seen under the lighter fabric, because you have so much to look at in this size quilt. Okay, now we're going to lay on, excuse me, I got going a little fast. We're going to lay on our rectangle sides, crossing over those seams there. Watch your seams on the back, and 1/4 inch seam allowance for everything, as if you didn't need me to say that, right? So yes, at this point, I'm going to actually kind of press over into the rectangle piece away from center, because it is just so much easier when you have multiple seam allowances on one fabric and none on the other side. Okay, and then once our squares in a square are made, here, still on page number 10, what we are going to want to do is we're going to match up our color codes. So yes, our red and our pink, our orange and our yellow. This is the one. It's the darker of the blues with the purple, or the darker of the light blues, right? Our darkest blue is our outside background color. Where is that even on camera? There it is. There's our dark blue background color. And then our lightest blue, the turquoise and the green there. And make sure you are really paying attention, because the locations of these triangles are also going to be paramount to the way the color coding works around the awesome quilt. Not every month is this detail oriented, and that's what makes really fun for this kind of a block of the month pattern. Some months are a little bit more focused on the sewing. Some are a little bit more focused on the design. Okay, so that's what we're going to do here. You can see I've got many of my color combinations already made, including my blue and turquoise. So I believe the last one I really need to do, as into following our instructions here, is to go ahead and make our red and pink. And now the way that's going to go is I like to actually come back to this first page 10, and I'm going to set, even with the seams and everything, so I've got my long seam up here. Then I'm going to go ahead and make sure that my red triangle fits in here, and it's on one of the shorter two sides, right? And then my pink on this side. And this is what's really cool about this kind of construction. I prefer to sew a triangle to a square instead of a triangle to a triangle, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this over, and I'm actually only going to concern myself with that straight edge and that straight edge. And then I'm going to sew from that nice squared out corner down to the pointy edge for this first pass. When you put together triangles on squares, sometimes, or there's always this overlap that happens right here. And so if you don't have something like this to look for, it can be a little confusing at first. And I know we've got a lot of new quilters joining us, so welcome to the club, but I like to try to point out some of those things that will make your lives a little bit easier as well. Pressing into the triangles there. Now, as I bring this back though, I really want to pay attention to my orientation. Remember, my white corner square and a square is up. Now I'm going to bring in this red side here. Same trick, I'm going to fold it over. I'm going to match up outside square edge, but now I am going to sew from these corners down. And even with this edge guide on here, I've learned I can kind of sneak that fabric in right there. See how it's kind of pinched over? And yet I can still get a really nice, accurate-ish, Rob Appell accurate on this style. Charisma and I are more the get her done style quilt makers, but I know a lot of you are very precision oriented out there as well. So now folks, again, as I was starting to point out, you're going to have these 4 different color combos. You're just seeing the other 2 here already up on the wall, as I love to sew ahead of you to make sure I really understand the way this all works together. So now we're going to move on to page 11, and this is pretty cool. We're going to add in here this template piece here, right? And with that being said, that came here as another like paper piece style page, but it's a template page. So you are going to need to make sure you cut this out. If you've purchased the pattern, it's the right size, but if you've done a downloaded purchase, then you want to make sure you test your 1-inch square by putting on a 1-inch mark, making sure that this is the accurate size, because this is going to need to stitch in here and fit in here as you see. So now what I did when I was preparing my pieces is I actually found you could tape them together, or I also like to use the template, and I just prepped out my strips and I used them on the fold as I was cutting. And I found that that made things nice and accurate. And then also we've got these neat little engineered corners on there. So make sure you take the time to trim those off as well. They will help us as we go to line things up. I'm just going to set those out of the way for this moment now. Slide our color combos out that we've already talked about, and let's get back into the construction of this block now, following the color code as you see here back on step 5. We're going to match up the short edge or the long edge of the triangle to the short edge of our template here. Easy. I am going to just take a moment and take those extra little pieces of fabric out of there. Anytime we can remove bulk, it's great. And of course, I love putting them on the floor because I get to do vacuuming later. And this is what I was just talking about earlier. Look, see, we're going to have these overlaps of these corners. When you're laying these as they are, you notice it kind of looks a little bit. So you're just going to want to do your best. You can fold it over, split the difference, looking at both of those triangles. Of course, you can find center right here. I kind of did that when I found those folded edges. Feeling good about this. And now I'm going to go ahead and do that nice long seam, taking a nice pace. Just for the ease of the situation at hand, we're going to go ahead now and press into the gray fabric, the templated piece. All right, we've got this, and you're probably doing those with all your color codes as you go. So go ahead and set all 4 of those sets aside now, and we're going to move back on to getting some more of this portion built, these fun little quarter squares and half square triangles. We're going to do that right now. So we have our white fabric that we've drawn the lines on the back of. We're matching it all with our different colors. Right now we are using our red because we're following along on the instructions, and because that's going to be 2 half square triangles, I need to slide that what is that thing called? The metal piece. The edge guide out of the way, because we're going to use the chalk line there as our guideline with our presser foot. And you're going to want to chain piece these. You've got a lot to do. I'm going to go ahead and just do this one for today's video. As you can see, I've got most of my sewing already done this month. Of course, the video is coming out near the end of the month. All right. Now, go ahead, protect your hands, protect your work, and just use a ruler there. Cut on that chalk line. And now what we're going to do is we're going to press these over towards the red fabric or the colored fabrics, because you're doing all your different colors. You see your purples and your yellows up there on the wall. I've got my turquoises down here. And of course, all this is clearly listed in your instructions. I'm just wanting to show you how it all goes together. Okay, now that that has been done, we're going to want to go ahead and mark again a diagonal line across the back of these. This will be again a guideline for 1/4 inch seam allowances. And even though you see tubing, and if you know your sewing techniques, you know we're going to make 2 out of each of these sets, you will be setting some of these aside for other months as well. So part of the fun now is we start making other units that go into the next month's blocks, which make life really nice and helpful. Okay, we're going to lay this on the solid black, just like you see here. And now I'm going to go ahead and sew using that same concept there, right along that edge guide, right along that chalk line. And just might as well do all of them again at once, chain piecing format. I should have mentioned, however, you are using 5 1/4 inch squares at this point. You do have different sizes. And again, in your instructions, it lets you know which ones you should be using. Those are your larger of the squares. Let's go ahead and rotate these and get these other seams done. So we're going to need 1 set for month 9, I believe it is, down the road. So I'm actually going to just toss that there for now. And we're just going to get back here to the focus on the one we need for today. We're going to divide that in half now, okay? And these are supposed to measure at 4 1/2. So you can press them open, or technically you could use your slotted trimmers on this side right now and do that same technique like we've been doing in the past. I'm going to press to the black fabric this month, show you how to trim using a regular ruler. If you were using your slotted trimmer, you'd want to make sure you're looking at that center line there as well. Okay, so now to do this, what we want to do is, watch this trick, this is pretty cool. I'm going to find my 45-degree angle. I'm going to lay it on the split between the colored fabric and the white fabric. I'm going to move it up enough that I'm clear of my 4 1/2 and my 4 1/2 in the bottom corner, so that then I can trim, and I can trim here. And what that's really done is guarantee that this center line stays really in the center of the block. So then as I rotate it now, I just find my 4 1/2 and my 4 1/2 mark down here in the corner, and then I go ahead and trim off the excess. use your Martelli mat for that because you have so many to do. I'll just quickly do this and show you again while I'm here instead of once again redecorating the set as I feel like I need to do. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and make sure I'm clear of my 4.5 and my 4.5 as I find that diagonal. If I need to come back a little more so that I have some to trim, I'm good that way. Trim here, so I'm right on the edge. Oh, darn you. Okay, so then I can rotate again, find that 4.5 in the corner. And like I was starting to say a few months ago, the cutting sizes are very accurate in your pattern to make the pieces and parts you need. So there is, as you can see, very little trimming going on. The trimming is wonderful because it helps us stay accurate as we work, but sometimes if you're making really large seam allowance or something, you may be coming up short. So you might want to make sure that you have all of your setups nicely dialed in so that you're not getting frustrated because, as I was trying to say, is your parts and pieces are pretty well engineered so that there's very little trimming necessary. Okay, so now folks, let's just go ahead and bring this back so that it looks like our page. So we have the black triangles like this, and then our red and white, our reds are touching kind of in that diamond shape like that. Okay, so that confirms we have what we need there. Now we also, like I was starting to say from last month, and this is the color unit we're going to need, so our turquoise and our green. And then we also have from this month's cutting instructions some more squares, and we're going to need 3 triangles made. So we were told to cut our squares here, and I believe these are around 4 7/8 or so, but we're going to cut those down. So these were smaller than the ones we used up here. That's what I'm trying to say. Now I have all 3 of these and all 3 of these parts made, and we're going to engineer this next upper triangle unit. Okay, so with that said, let's just take the time, and I think it's going to be easiest to work from this bottom corner. So I'm going to rotate this. I'm going to make sure I've got the black and the white here. Then I want to go ahead and let the black tips come in and touch here. Very nice high contrast. All right. And then I am going to fill in with a triangle here. And these are again on the short sides, not the diagonal cut of those triangles, all the way across as it is. This is going to be easiest if we sew it in sets 1, 2, 3 parts, 2 parts, 1 part. So let's do it like that together because we're in no rush. We've got all month. So I'm going to flip that over and rotate. And speaking about all month, oh, let's get this 1/4 inch guide back in. Next month is going to be another work month where we're going to be making a ton of the same units. So do not let yourself fall behind this month because I've already told you next month is a work month because you're really going to want to be able to have all of those units done so that you don't feel like you're falling behind in the sewing as it's going. Let's go ahead and press downhill at the moment. Drop that back in, make sure everything is still in its proper orientation. And it is not, folks. I felt like something was wrong. Look what I did. And boy, I wonder, I'm a little nervous now. I wonder if I did it with all my other ones. Nope, okay, I'm good. Phew. See this, folks? The red here was supposed to be on the bottom edge. And of course, you had lefts and rights, and I rotated them the wrong way. So let me show you this trick. Hadn't intended on this, but if you ever need to take out some sewing while you're going, it's easiest if you actually press it back to the way it came off of the machine first, because that way you're not fighting with those seam allowances as you remove the threads. It's never one of those things you really want to teach on camera, but everything else is going so smoothly. Let's just do it and get it done. So, seam ripper out. I'm going to make sure I'm trying not to stab into anything other than just the threads. And sometimes I'll start just a few threads down even. I know the ball's supposed to go in, but it always seems to work out for me if the ball is up. Okay, then that just opens right up. Give a little yank on those last 2. Easy enough. Now, let's get a quick rotation because that was supposed to be there. This was, ooh, ouch, supposed to be here. Let's see if I can get this right again. There it is. So the reds are on the outside edges. Like I was saying earlier in the video, very color and orientation specific. So now we're just going to sew that back together and let's get caught up. Back to pressing downhill. I guess in the next one, I should probably try to think about pressing uphill though. Maybe some of my seams will nest. I hadn't really considered that yet. Right now, I was too worried about getting that on correctly. Okay, and now I'm so panicked after the last episode, I do want to make sure we've got it all going correctly. Yeah, it looks like it's going to form a half a rectangle there. And like the trick I was showing you earlier in the video, line that up and whenever possible, use that squared corner to sew from with your triangles. If you want to press this one down into the other fabric, they're both white, so it really isn't going to matter. Do what makes you feel good at home. Okay, now I'm going to put this one on the same way. And with the hopes of nesting later, I am going to now press up into this triangle. And before I sew this long seam together over to here, we're going to put the other triangle on too. Okay, so we're going to come back here. We're going to grab this just like we were doing earlier, so that way I can really keep a nice pinch or a pin in that section there to make sure that those corners stay lined up. Press it over. Now we're going to add it back on here. Hopefully those seams have nested for us so that I can match them up nicely. And at this point, like I did with the other small triangles, I'm going to flip it over so I can still manage my seams, manage the work, but I also have that squared corner to start with, so those blocks stay aligned nicely. Checking that seam allowance, going for accuracy when we can, and then we're going to sew up to the end of this. And then we just have that one last seam really, folks. Let's press this first. And I kind of made a boo-boo at that end if you saw where the fabric's folded over, but okay. And like before we sewed on the other gray side, let's take a moment and take off a little bit of that bulk there. And then we're going to bring in our, oh, careful there, guy, you're going to hurt yourself. Okay, we're bringing in these two units as they are, flop them over, line them up. Now, these corners on the gray templates, remember, were trimmed out earlier. Okay, so don't try to force it to that long corner. You've already cut those corners off. This is giving you the opportunity, but it is going to be on the bias on the other side. So don't overstretch it, don't overwork it. If you want to flip it over this way so you can really manage all your seams as you go, that might be the best advice I can give at this moment. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm sewing with my needle down in case I need to stop for any reason. And I'm just going to do nice and slow all the way through. And we just have 4 blocks this month to do this way. And I'm going to just remind you again to double check all your color orientations while you're sewing, and double check them again when you're done. And if for any reason they're not right, please just take the moment to correct them, because it will be so important as we get into the way that our wonderful color wheel starts to look down the road. Let's go ahead and press again into that gray, that long skinny piece to make life easy on us. And there you have it. The construction of month 5. And like I said, I will be right back month number 6, where we have a bit of a work month, but we've got a lot of work in that work month. So I'll see you next time. Thanks for being here, folks. I'm super excited to have been presenting to you this Charisma Horton pattern EPIC featuring the Benartex Fabrics New and Newer Worlds by myself, Rob Appell from Stitch in Heaven. Thanks again, folks.